In this video, we're going to talk about how important it is to have perfect monitoring and a perfect room, and how much difference it makes on the decision making when you decide what to do when mixing in, let's say, a room like this compared to mixing in a producer's studio. How much does this impact you as a producer by working on kind of budget speakers in a bedroom, for instance? Now, my friend Danny, he's got a lovely studio. He's got 8 grand speakers. They're beautiful Ex Machina Pulsars. He has a great studio with great monitoring. So what we want to highlight here is how much difference there is when we work in his studio compared to how much difference there is working in this studio. So what we're going to do is we're going to get him to mix a track in here. We're then going to get him to mix the track in his studio. Then we're going to directly compare the two mixes. Now, how much difference is there between his mix in this studio, having accurate monitoring, compared to how much difference there is in his studio, in his environment, which technically speaking, he actually knows incredibly well. Then what we're going to do, I'm going to mix the track in here as well. I'm going to then mix the track in his studio. Now, how much difference is there between me mixing a track in here compared to me mixing a track in his studio? Bearing in mind, I don't know his monitors, I don't know his room. Now, that's going to be a good comparison, because what that's going to tell us is whether it's the room or the ear, or how much each part plays a factor in it. Now, I know that I could not get as good results as I do get in this room in a room that isn't accurate. I know personally that the reason I get such good results is because of the room. The room plays a huge part in it. So what we're going to find out today is how much difference there is when I go into another studio without accurate monitoring and I perform a mix that's purely down to the room environment and the acoustics of the room. And it's really going to show how much difference there is between having a really good room compared to a producer studio. So Danny, what we're first of all going to do, we're going to compare your mixes. So we're going to compare the top file is your mix that you have done here. The one underneath is the mix that you've done in my studio. Now, the only differences, and would you agree with this, the only differences that there are here, you've used the same plugins, the same stems, everything is the same. The only difference is the room, the fact that I've got a Trinnov fitting, and also the speakers.
Yeah, literally.
So it's basically the room, the speakers, and room correction.
Yeah.
So what this is going to highlight is the difference an exceptional room, speakers, and Trinnov room correction has to play in the kind of decisions you make on a mix and how you mix it based on what you can physically hear. So they are the only differences. And you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Right, so moment of truth.
Okay.
Let's start with playing your mix that you did here.
Yeah.
Then switch it to the mix you've done in my studio.
Cool. Let's do it. Much clearer in your one.
Yeah, I mean the vocals especially are way too loud in here.
Yeah.
I think you've mixed the vocals a lot lower when mixing it in my studio.
Yeah, I did.
I think you could argue that a revision to that mix, you'd maybe bring the vocals up. Maybe the vocals are a little bit low.
They are.
But generally speaking, when you listen to the two mixes, there's a lot more clarity in the mix you've done at mine, isn't there?
A million times. And yet the same plugins, exactly. All I've used, because that's all I ever do use, are the SSL 4KB channel strip and Soothe. That's all I've used on both.
Let's try it in a different place. Have a listen to it.
Let's go maybe here.
Yeah, that's stripped back.
So not as obvious difference
No.
there because there's less going on at the top, but still far more clarity.
There's a lot more tightness around that low end, and
Yeah.
also there's a lot more punch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know I did it more quickly in your studio as
You
well
did,
because
yeah.
it was just
It was
obvious
very
what to
quick.
do. So what does that show? That shows that I'm the same person using the same plugins. So the reason it sounds so much better is because your room is so much better than my room. It can't be anything else, I guess. There's no
Yeah.
other explanation.
So it's played a huge part in
Yeah.
you getting what you would consider a superior sound to
Yeah.
what you would get elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right, let's do one last test. Listen to around another part.
Let's do it. Right, so this is in my room. Again, far more clarity.
Yeah, it's a lot more pleasing, isn't it, to listen to that?
And more air. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, everything, yeah.
Let's now go to my mix in my studio
Yep.
versus my mix that I've just done in your studio.
Okay.
So let's see the exact same situation
Yep.
and see if the mix I've done here
Yeah.
is equal to the mix that I've done in my studio. Because what that will show us
Yes.
is that a huge factor in this is the room, the speakers, and the listening environment.
Yeah, absolutely. This is your mix in your studio, and then we're going to play your mix in this studio.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Your studio first. Your mix in your studio is a trillion times better than your mix in my studio.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
there's
a-
no difference there except from the fact of what I'm actually listening to.
Yeah.
I mean, I use maybe a few. I use some more choice plugins when working in my studio. Obviously, because I have those plugins and they're not ones that you had. But they're not playing a major factor in it. Let's try that stripped back bit, just because there's only drums and bass technically to compare there.
Okay, so this is your studio followed by mine. Here we go. Obviously,
thing-
it's a bit louder.
It's I mean it's a touch louder, but
Yeah, even
one
so.
thing I am noticing massively is that the low end is far more accurate in my studio. It's
billion times.
It's got lovely round low end to it, whereas I figured I was way loud enough in here.
Yeah,
I really did think I was my low end was loud.
yeah,
Yeah, just goes to show how the fact of a different studio that's not kind of corrected in the sense of the low end, you would overcompensate for it or undercompensate for it in this case.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it just shows. So your mix is better in your studio, and you're the same person. And my mix is even better in your
But then
studio,
what-
and I
what-
don't even know your studio.
What you've got to kind of realise here is that you are comparing almost. You're comparing a £60,000 monitoring chain compared to £8,000 monitoring chain. I mean, bear in mind you've got different converters. You know, there's a lot of factors here. What will be interesting now is compare your mix in this studio to my mix in this studio.
Okay,
So now we're getting a comparison of the room,
I do,
so you should get a better sound than me,
in theory.
whereas I have the knowledge.
Yes. Okay, let's have a look. All right, me and my studio, followed by...
Imagine if I got a better mix than you in your studio.
You probably do. I can well imagine.
Let's see.
All right, here we go.
No, I want you to win this one.
Thank you.
Dance like crazy, crazy. Dance
Now that's it. I'm slitting my throat. Yours is a billion times clear. Yeah, mine's louder. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Yours is way cleaner.
It's cleaner. But
what?
I'm trying to give you something here.
That you can't. What's the damage?
It's a little bit. It's quieter. It's noticeably quieter because obviously it's a mix.
It's irrelevant. So your studio is 100 times better than mine, and your expertise and knowledge are 100% better than me. I'm going to try and get a job in McDonald's. At least I can produce. Man.
Right. Okay.
You can't make me feel better now.
So what we'll do now is we'll compare your mix in my studio versus my mix in my studio.
Okay. All right. So my mix in your studio first.
There looks like a slight loudness difference there.
Yeah.
But
probably.
yeah.
We'll hear through that. So what I would say is, yes, your mix is much better than mine, but the gap is lesser than the difference when it's to do with my studio.
It's become a lot closer.
A lot closer, which shows that it's all about the studio. Not all about, but a lot of it.
It plays a massive part in it.
Yeah, almost really more than the engineer. Like even.
Yeah. Well, put it this way: if I can have the expertise that I have and come into your room and get what is considered not an incredibly great sound, but a sound. It's like me working in my room with cotton buds in my ears.
Yeah.
To then have to be able to get a lesser sound when I come into this studio, just by the sheer fact that I'm using different monitors.
Yeah.
And it's not as high end as my studio.
No.
Because the thing is any engineer. And I'm sure any engineer would tell you this. You are only as good as what you can hear.
Yeah.
You can only make the decisions based on what you can hear. Now imagine you've got people who are mixing at home on £200, £300 Yamaha HS8s or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Rocket 8s or Rocket 6s.
Like my son Alex.
Yeah. And you imagine the sound that they're getting, and they're thinking it's great. But then imagine the sound that they possibly could get.
Yeah.
And you're talking about in this room, a brilliant room with great acoustics through £8,000 monitors. And you're getting that bigger jump. Now consider £200 monitors in a bedroom with a cupboard and a bed, curtains, all these different things playing a huge factor.
Their mum
no
walking
treat.
in with a cup of tea.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, you're right.
With no acoustics
compared to your studio,
compared to mine, it's even bigger jump.
Of course.
So you're only as I stand firm on any engineer is only as good as what they can hear, and if they can't hear correctly, it plays a massive part in it.
Yeah, it does. Wow, I feel sick. But thank you for enlightening me.
But it's been interesting.
Yeah, it has definitely. Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, that is. It's.
That's nuts, isn't it?